You are listening to the SITREP podcast, your source for everything related to historical wargaming. Whether you are looking for the latest wargaming news, reviews, painting tutorials, or playthroughs, you will hear about it right here. So grab your favorite beverage or brush and let's hit it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next exciting episode of the SITREP podcast. Joining me today, as always, is our big man, the historical editor, guru, game creator himself, Mr. Jim Oriskany. Sir, how are you today?
Oh, I can't complain too much. How are you?
I am doing well. It's a beautiful sunny day here in central Midwest of the United States of grand old America. And joining me in the region is Martin, our projects director. Marty?
Hello. Yes, that's nice. So, as you said before, it's going to get super steamy and muggy today.
That's why I got a pool.
Maybe I'll come over and join you.
Come on over, bud. We still got a whole bunch of beer in the fridge.
Okay, I guess you talked me into it.
Make sure you bring some of those 1 to 1800 miniatures and do some miniature gaming in the pool. Some naval combat. Sable Islands. There you go.
Chris can bring his, what is that, oak and iron? Those little ships?
Yeah, we should do that.
And I'll get the BB gun out, and we'll shoot them. It might put a hole in my pool, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had to replace the liner in your pool last summer. Let's not do that.
Yeah, Dawn would kill me.
She would.
Yes,
I mean, like, murder
literally.
You right there on the back porch patio.
Exactly. And also joining us here in the warm and steamy Midwest is our IT guy, Mr. Chris. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thanks.
I hear you're doing IT-ing things today.
Yes, I am.
Would you be able to join us for some pool and libations later, or are you all day booked?
No, I will be able to. I started early this morning, and hopefully, if things go well, I should be wrapping up here in the next couple hours.
Fan-freaking-tastic. All right, let's reel it back into the why we are here. We are here to talk about anything related to wargaming in a historical format. So like we traditionally do every episode is we do a quick catch-up with each person to find out what they've got going on, what they've been up to in the world of wargaming. So we're going to start with the easy one. Chris, what you been doing?
Attending funerals and hosting relatives.
Okay, that's really a downer, man. I'm very sorry for the loss. Condolences from us at the team. Was this a family member or friends or?
Great aunt.
Gotcha. Well, from the whole community, we send out our condolences to you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Obviously, it got in the way of
course,
of stuff.
Of course.
Although with Uncle Kevin over there, visiting you guys while he was able, so he could attend the memorial and whatnot. Your driveway looks great with all of our trucks parked in it.
Yeah.
Looked like a used truck sales lot over there the other night.
Yeah, 3 pickups in the driveway, the way it should look.
All right. Moving on down the neighborhood, Marty, what you been up to?
So I have been. I finished up my little Afghan National Police dudes, painting them. I still have to do the basing on them. But the painting is done, so I'm happy with that. So I can now use my Afghan National Police in some of my games. And my thought was kind of use them like we were using the Insurgents in the 13 Days to 13 Hours, where they can flip either side. I think that's a good mechanic for them, especially given the climate there in Afghanistan, as it stands today.
Right.
Sometimes they're like, yeah, this is our house, and sometimes they're like, yeah, it looks like we're going to go with the winning team, and that's you guys. So yeah, we'll hang out close. So I think that would be a cool addition to a couple of the games I've played.
Sure.
the other thing that I've been working on is painting up a couple of my vehicles for Dust 1947. So I have some mercenary walkers, and I decided since those are the demolition chicks that I would use turbo dork paints on them.
Okay.
So I've discovered that those are very difficult to thin correctly and run through my airbrush.
Yeah, they don't. They there's I think there's some secret sauce, because I've seen a lot of people say it's very hard to use in an airbrush. I think it's just the pigmentation or whatever. Do you like those paints?
Yes, for the most part. I like the way they turn out when they turn out right.
Right.
They can be a little difficult to use.
Yeah.
And again, I think that boils down to mostly being able to thin them right. And the secret sauce for me was lots of flow improver and trying to figure out what that ratio was that makes my my airbrush happy. But the thoughts are that they don't make any of their own stuff, so they steal it or find it on the battlefield. So I painted them all. I painted all the vehicles in a generic green army scheme, because I knew I was going to paint over them, so I didn't go crazy with it.
Right.
And then I laid a layer of turbo dork paint over it. So one is people eater purple.
That's a good color.
Which turned out fantastic, and it you can still see a little bit of the green coming through there, and that's actually a really good look. And then the other one, I went for Bubblegum Crisis, which is supposed to be pink.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't laying it over a black base, it actually turned out more gold. Not the look I was going for, but it turned out pretty good. So I'll take it.
Yep.
You got the Crisis part down then.
Yeah. There was plenty of Crisis. So my first try turned out so bad that I ended up stripping both models completely and starting over.
Yeah,
again, that was trying to get the paint thinned correctly, and it just looked like crap. So
it's for a medium. It's a hard medium to use. I have found that it has to really be a dark background, blackish or something really dark as a primer for those colors to really do what it is they designed to do. I don't find that like the lighter primers work as well as darker. So sometimes that eliminates some of what you can do with them. I was sent test bottles when they first came onto the market, and I've used them. They're nice paints, but I don't have a use for them, to be honest with you, outside of like some spaceships for drop fleet or something like that. Or I've used it, some of the blues for painting like goggles and glasses, like sunglasses and stuff on.
Right. Yeah. Because none of that color range lends itself to historical anything.
Yeah.
I thought that it'd be a neat change of pace for the weird World War II. Given that the mercenaries, one, they're almost exclusively female, and two, all of their stuff is stolen. So let's differentiate it from what the original vehicle was, and this is how they would have modified it, kind of thing. And it was just a fun experiment. I too don't have a whole lot of stuff to use it on, but I'm like, I really like the way the paints turn out when they're running nice. I got to find something to paint this with.
Yeah.
So that's what I had, and I'm like, I'll take it. It's pretty cool looking.
Yep.
I'll find something in the future to paint it up with.
Yeah. So it's good to hear that you're working on some of your dust models, because I know you'll be getting an influx of a large amount of dust stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that later on the episode, but you're going to be you and Chris will be receiving a large quantity of dust stuff.
So a couple of things I want to clarify, or blame Marty for. One of the things to clarify, he was stripping the vehicles, not the miniature.
Yeah, we got you.
And
wait a minute, I need to provide some clarification. Are you sure? How do you know? What I do in my loft is my business, sir. paint any way I want to. Thank you.
And you definitely like little people, so
Yeah, how about it? For those of you that don't know, my wife is 4 feet tall.
Oh.
And your daughters aren't much taller. And you're not that tall either, so.
Yeah. You know, I'm the big guy at 5'9".
All right. So moving along, just down the road, what have I been up to? Well, Jim and I duked it out on Wednesday night live. Believe it or not, I played the Germans, and he played the American. I think it was the 29th Infantry, right, Jim? Is what we said they were.
I think they said 16th Regimental Combat Team.
Okay.
Which, are part of 29th Infantry that landed at Omaha.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a total role reversal for you guys.
Yeah.
You were playing the Axis, and you were the game master. You had to run the board.
Yeah. So we discovered some interesting quirks about the Valor and Victory PC simulation game. The biggest quirk is you cannot play PvP like traditionally. They're using a PBEM, play by email, which is literally a modernized version of play by mail, like you used to do in the 60s and 70s with like Avalon Hill games. You would have this paper and you'd mark out all your moves. You would send it to your opponent via mail. They would do their thing. And literally it would take months to play one game, right, Jim? Because depending on how often you were sending it back and forth. So
yeah, if you're going all the way back to the old, lick a stamp and, actually play by mail,
yeah.
Good grief. Yeah.
Those
are the days.
There's a reason why we call it snail mail.
Yeah. So, so Valor and Victory, the PC simulation game, does do player versus player, but play by email. So you take your turn. It sends an email to your opponent, says, okay, they've taken your turn. You go in, you do your turn, and it goes vice versa, right? So I'm like, that's kind of silly. So then there's a thing called hot seat, which is literally where you guys would be in the same room. You're playing on one computer. So one guy takes his turn, gets out of the seat. The other person gets in the seat and plays their turn, or you sit next to each other. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this is not very conducive to a head-to-head play. We made it work, but I was really hoping for some more interactive. Jim could move his guys because, and as Jim found out, as he's thinking through his movements at some point, he did an assault move, like in the very last turn, and, he knew what he wanted to do, but how it ended up, it didn't end up exactly, it's easier when you can actually physically manipulate your pieces as you're thinking about it versus thinking about it and having somebody else do it for you. But it worked out for you in the end. That
was just that move that you're talking about. There was apparently they have invented or created some different building rules.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure in Valor and Victory, it's all like pen and paper Valor and Victory, tabletop Valor and Victory. It's always 2 points to enter a building. And on that particular map, we were playing Colleyville, by the way. Sometimes some of the buildings required 3 movement points to enter. And I was using assault move, which is half your movement. My movement was 6 because I had a leader in the stack. And I wanted to move 2 hexes, and I was picturing in my head the tabletop rule, 2 hexes into the building, 1 hex across the street. Or I should say 2 points to move into the building hex, 1 movement point to move across the street, ready for an assault. I get to leverage that +1 cover bonus for my assault move. No, but it took 3 points to move into that building. I wasn't across the street yet. I was no longer in range to assault. That wasn't really the game's fault. That was just I didn't realize it cost 3 points to move into that building.
Right.
It's like you said, it all worked out. So yeah, that was definitely a fun game.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I was very surprised by that last move when you assaulted, and I'm like, got totally wiped out. It was like it was my heaviest stack at that point, because I pretty much lost everything, and boom, here you go, and there it goes. So it was a good game.
I've kind of rewatched that and kind of gone through the math. It was literally a 50-50 shot. I needed a 5 down on 2d6, and I had a +2 officer, which means I needed a 7 down. So anyone who plays craps knows 7 or down on 2d6. That's straight down the middle, 50-50. No matter what, that stack of mine that was doing the attacking was going to get wiped out, because the casualty point cost for that assault would have been 2 casualty points for the 2 infantry units you had in the stack, plus 3 for the building, means 5. I only had 3 casualty points in my stack. So no matter what my guy was taking out, it was kind of a suicide move for him. Captain Simpkins, I think it was.
Yeah.
But 50-50, he took that last Sherman stack with him. And sadly for me, as the American player, I had the offensive, burden of victory, so to speak. The victory conditions demanded that I kill or eliminate or pin every German unit on the table by the end of turn 7. And it was turn 7, so it was make or break time. I had the more powerful force. It's classic asymmetrical wargaming. I had the more powerful force, but I had the more difficult victory conditions. All you had to do was survive.
Yeah.
If you had at least one half stack somewhere that wasn't killed or pinned at the end of turn 7, I think the game gives you the win. So I meant to hit that last stack with 2 of my stacks, including a more powerful stack. Like we mentioned earlier, I kind of screwed up the way the more powerful stack moved, so they wound up not being able to participate in that last assault, and therefore in goes my weak stack all by himself. It turns into a suicide mission, and he got lucky. It was literally a 50-50 die roll, the last die roll of the game.
Yeah. It was a good game. And I'll be honest with you, it was very difficult for me to play a defensive posture. I couldn't do it. I tried, and I couldn't do it. So, and it cost me. I made some stupid moves. And turn 1, I lost my only fighting armored vehicle. I moved it. Jim sat in the perfect line of sight, hit it with his bazooka, and that was that. So
yeah, it didn't start off well.
No, not
there,
at all.
There are elements of we talk about the offensive versus the defensive role. There are elements of defense and offense and vice versa. So the way that map was shaped, almost like the buildings were shaped like an upside down Y, with a street heading right up the middle of the board, and then the southern half of the board, that street kind of divides into 2 45-degree angles. And I just put a whole bunch of guys in those buildings as a base of fire, and then executed fire and maneuver with some of my other stacks moving up, so that if you came out and assaulted, like my poor tank, my poor little Stuart, there's 2 platoons of guys with 30 cals, conducting Overwatch, and anyone that comes out to assault them gets chewed up by all kinds of opportunity fire.
Yeah, so
and
we found a bug.
And then, I was going to say, was it turn 6 that showed up?
5 or 6, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we tried to assault the Stuart. The German infantry tried to literally assault the Stuart, and it would crash every time. But we found out, thankfully, it will automatically save the game at the change of the turn. So, we had to replay the turn a few times till we figured out what was going on. But, that first time I was like, what the hell happened? I'm like, we just went through all this and it crashes on us. So, yes, there is a bug.
We thought we ruined the stream.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that. If anybody has the game that's listening to the stream, take the American campaign in the June release of Valor and Victory by Slytherin. Check out the American attack at, I think it's pronounced Colleyville, Colleville, and that game that gives the Americans in their order of battle in the M3 Stuart light tank.
Uh-huh.
And if anyone can play, I'm going to try this probably either later today or maybe late tomorrow. In the solo, game or whatever, play against the AI. Try to assault the American armored vehicle. Try to assault the American tank with German infantry.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the game
crashes.
trying to save you from yourself. You're like, no, don't do that.
Well, it was kind of too late because
yeah, by that point,
just
there was
setting up
nothing
the
left.
assault. Just setting up the assault. I think one time Bill lost something like a platoon and a half.
Yeah.
And again, because they're covered. That part of the game was, to my credit. My tank was covered by infantry. What wasn't to my credit, and where I just got lucky, was number 1, the game crashed when Bill would try to assault my tank, and then number 2, the one lucky break, I fully admit, people don't like to admit when they're lucky. They chalk it up to their own brilliant tactics. Not here. There's no brilliant tactics on this side of the table. The one lucky break I did get was that Stewart took some opportunity fire on one of Bill's command stacks, and rather than the game allowing you to choose what casualties you take when you your stacks, boom, there goes the Panzerschreck, the one anti-armor weapon that Bill had in his armor of battle.
Yeah, that
would not have that would not happen on tabletop.
Yeah,
on tabletop, your stack takes casualties. Okay, you don't get to choose whether or not you took casualties. Enemy bullets took care of that for you. But within that stack, assuming that everything is destroyed, you get to pick what got destroyed.
Right.
And it's not just, what guys got knocked down, but okay, you've got 10 guys in a stack. One guy's carrying an MG34, one guy's carrying a Panzerschreck. Think about it in real life. Half your guys get taken out. Okay, you no longer have enough guys to both mount an MG34 team and a Panzerschreck team. You, as the sergeant in that hex, get to choose and say to your guys, drop that MG42 or MG34, pick up that Panzerschreck. There's a tank out there. That's how the game works on tabletop. It doesn't seem to work that way in the computer game.
Yeah, so, I mean, hopefully, I'm going to post up in the forum over on Matrix Slytherin Games and, point that out. I'm assuming they did that for ease of play. I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was behind that, but yeah, that was a little frustrating.
That's going to be to help things speed up. I actually talked to some of the people that are involved because I'm building some materials to help them out with future releases that are hopefully coming out later this year. So I am in contact with them, like behind the scenes, and I did kind of ask them about that. Not complaining, but because I'm designing scenarios for part of Wave 2 release that, again, comes out later on. So as I'm playtesting these scenarios, I have to know how their version of the game interprets some Valor and Victory rules.
Yeah.
So that my playtesting and my scenarios make some kind of sense.
Right.
Yeah, he came out and he was like, yeah, it just takes too long. Because every time, think about it in the computer game, every time you took casualties, you would go back to the other player, especially in a hot seat game, where you literally have to get, scoot your computer chair out of the way and let the other guy, get in there. You have to look at his stack now and pluck out what units, you're choosing out of your stack to take casualties. So I do understand the decision. Some games do that on purpose. Force on Force is a great example. Force on Force does that. Okay, so a squad of, U.S. Army Rangers or U.S. Marines or who knows who, Spetsnaz, SAS, a squad of trained soldiers coming across the street, they take casualties. That the owning player of those troops gets to pick what units, as long as the right number of units are knocked out,
right,
are eliminated out of that partial stack. And that's, again, you don't get to decide where the bullets go in real life, but when certain numbers of your guys get put down, you get to choose, okay, who's taking care of the guy who just got wounded, who's picking up his weapon, and who is, what weapons is your squad or your fire team still going to carry? Because everybody's cross-trained. That's the logic behind it in Force on Force.
Right.
Insurgents in Force on Force don't get that choice. What gets hit, gets hit. If there's 10 guys coming across the street and one of them is an RPG and the RPG guy goes down, that RPG guy is down. Another insurgent does not get to pick up the RPG and continue forward because the logic is, in those kinds of forces, there's not a lot of cross-training. If the PK guy goes down, the RPK guy goes down, the RPG guy goes down, the next insurgent has got his AK. That's what what little training he has or practice he has is on that weapon, and that RPG is laying in the street. So there are some games that leverage that logic loophole to their advantage. I'm not sure. I think in Valor and Victory it was just for ease of computer play. It would really slow down the game. It would almost double the length of almost any turn.
Yeah, I know. I get it. It just was frustrating because it's, kind of your point. I believe the AI is programmed to take out the most potent weapon, because there was a choice to there was a Panzerschreck and then there was an MG34, and it took out the Panzerschreck. So I don't know if they...
Nine times out of 10, the MG34 is more useful.
Yeah.
This was just that 10th time where you really needed that Panzerschreck.
Yeah. Yeah, I needed it.
MG34 will hit almost anything on the table. MG34 tears up infantry, Panzerschreck tears up armor. what are you fighting 9 times out of 10 in Battle Victory? You know, normally the MG34 is the preferred weapon,
right.
but this was a kind of a weird case where you were literally setting up to take out the American tank, and then the very first guy to get knocked out by the American tank's opportunity fire as you entered that meadow was, oh, look, down goes Mr. Pencher.
Yeah.
Which was fun because I was rolling really bad. I mean, the computer rolls the dice for you. 10, 10, 9, 10, 11. High rolls are bad in this game, everyone. And I was just like, man, I'm starting to grind my teeth a little bit. Can I please catch a break? And then all that bad luck got balanced at once with just that one beautiful shot.
Yeah.
Took out the pen. I guess fragmentation from that tiny little 37 millimeter anti-tank gun actually punctured a hole in the tube of the Panzerschreck or something. I don't know. All of a sudden, I caught all the breaks just that one lucky roll right there.
Yeah.
It was great.
But Bill's response was pretty epic.
Yeah.
What?
Your response was pretty epic. You were not pleased when that happened.
No.
Yeah, that took casualties, and the only thing the game does is it flashes you up a little message saying casualties. I'm like, ooh, I did casualties to that stack. I wonder if I knocked out the Panzerschreck, and we kind of hit the button that opens up the stack, and I saw that the Panzerschreck was not there anymore, and I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
Bill was saying something else at the moment, but it's all good.
Yeah, I probably said some not nice words. Oh, well, what are you going to do?
Well, I don't blame you. I would have been saying the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's just the way it goes. So there was that, and you know, I'm just working on some projects. You know, the war of scale, if you will. You know, doing some battle group or North Hag in 3, 6, 10, 15, and 28 mil. So, and then I still have a video for painting 30-minute speed painting an infantry battalion / brigade. I'm going to see how much I can get done in 30 minutes. Minimum of a battalion all the way up to brigade of the epic battles from Warlord Games for Epic Civil War. So we shall see. Sir Jim, what's up?
Yes. Not as much as usual. We did have an absolutely epic Panzer Leader game last week.
Yeah, you did.
On the Sit Rep podcast. Me and our friend Andrew, sometimes known as Bruce Lee in the community.
It was good to see him. I haven't, seen him around for a while, so it was good to see him.
Yeah, we've been in touch. I don't want to go into the details, but yeah, I mean, 2020 was bad for a lot of people. For a whole bunch of different reasons. So yeah, he's just been really, really busy.
Yeah.
With a whole bunch of stuff. He kept like sending me apologies. Like, please don't take me off the email list. I do want to get together and, do some more Panzer Leader with you. It's just, I gotta wait for the planets to align. Fortunately they finally did. And we did some Operation Goodwood, which was one of the major British offensives outside the town of Caen. In Normandy in the weeks following the D-Day landings in 1944. So everyone knows about D-Day, Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, June 6, 1944. Yeah. That was the first day out of about 2.5 months. And June 6, 1944 is the day when everything went pretty well, believe it or not, because after that it got hard. I mean, it got really bad. Outside of Omaha Beach, which everyone, again, has seen in the movies, D-Day actually went pretty smooth. Some of the paratrooper drops got a little scattered, and again, Omaha was a bit of a shambles as far as, a whole bunch of different factors. But other than that, the landings went, there was hard fighting on all 5 beaches, but other than that, the landings went pretty smooth, considering the difficulties they were up against.
Yeah.
The problem was all the planning was in that first day. After that, it was, okay, now what do we do? And it wasn't from lack of trying on the Allies' part. They had the Mulberry ports, they had the Pluto pipeline, but you can only plan so far in the future because you don't know what's going to happen, in the intervening days.
Right.
And, once you got into that Bocage country, if you guys ever get a chance to travel there, I've been up and down. I've been to all 5 of those beaches. I've been to all the landing grounds. I've been to Carentan, Mireville, Falaise, all the way down to Mortain, Argentan. I've been everywhere, not just the actual beaches, but that whole campaign area. And Yeah, they're not kidding around when they say that Bokash country is tough. So, yeah, it was a tough game. It was a very, very tough campaign in real life, and then for us, it was a tough game on both sides, really. But that was my hobby for the week, really. We had a great Panzer Leader game. Again, it came down to the last turn, which is always a good thing. I don't think it was quite as close as our Valor and Victory game. Valor and Victory game, the last assault on the last turn, the last die roll was pretty much 50-50. Bruce's last assault on my third objective hex was not 50-50. I think he had like 45 Cromwells and Sherman tanks blowing up 10 empty German half-tracks. That was not 50-50. I think that last attack was like 13-1 odds or something. It was like, but I did manage to hold up to the last turn. I was playing the Germans again, which again is usually the case. I'm usually, stuck playing the bad guys. I say stuck playing the bad guys. It's actually kind of fun to play the bad guys. But yeah, I was playing German Waffen-SS and Wehrmacht in one of the big tank battles on the Western Front. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, that's been pretty much my hobby for the week.
All right, let's transition into some updates or news. Marty, do you have anything this week?
So I don't have anything in particular. However, something I thought about while we were talking about hobby is I'm pretty sure that we at least you and I, Bill, both backed the Kickstarter from Footsore on their War of 1812? No, Indian Wars. I'm drawing a blank on it.
Savage Frontier.
French and Indian War. Okay.
Yeah.
The Savage Frontier.
Yeah, Savage Frontier.
Yes.
Because you were talking about building. You were working on building some stuff, and I'm like,
yeah,
I think that's coming out in a couple months. Yeah.
It's September, isn't it? I think. You know
September,
what? I haven't gotten an
October?
update in a while, so I have to look.
I haven't either, but I just thought about that. I'm like, ooh, we're gonna have to build a table for that pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to reach out to Tim and see if I can get some updates from him. He was supposed to send us a couple sample minis so we could do a painting video. I'll have to remind him about that as well. So, yeah, it'd be interesting. I know this is getting off target as far as newses. Wow, where do I learn English? Thank God we don't have an English guy on the show right now. But I was thinking about that. While those are really cool minis and stuff, you're really kind of limited into what you can play, and what I mean is because they're specifically designed for that time period and even more specific to a season, you're talking winter.
Yeah, because they're all winter figures.
Yeah. So, I mean, while that's cool
but there were some really good-looking figures.
Oh yeah, no, those are great figures and all that. My only observation is how often are you going to be able? And this is going to kind of lead into our main topic today. But how often can you play that specific of a genre miniature battle? So because Jim has pointed out many times in the past, and this is going to be a little different because this is Frontier, Northeast combat. Indians. American natives, whatever you call them these days, Native Americans, whatever it is, the tribes, the nations, you're fighting them against Canadians and French and British, trappers and explorers. Really, is what it comes down to. So, how often are you going to do that? So. But
yeah,
no, it'd be nice to paint up. It's something different. That's what I'm really looking forward to. Is it's not your typical modern-ish or World War II. It's going back to a time period that you don't have a lot of, so you really get to do something different. So I like the variety of that.
Well, and I think that would be a good game for an event like Little Wars.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you don't play it once a month, but once a year at a local convention like that, I bet would be something that would be well received.
Yeah, Little Wars, Historicon, any of those, even Adepticon. So
it has that quality that I kind of ran into when I was doing my Gulf War U.S. Marine stuff. Is Yeah, if you take this to a convention or if you have it like on your shelf or no matter where you take it, you're going to be the only person there. I mean, it has that benefit. It has that bonus.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have the French and Indian War Army?
Yeah,
I mean, not
right.
too many.
Right.
So you're going to be the only person there. On the other hand, how often are you going to get to play it? I mean, the Gulf War, for my figures, that thing lasted technically 100, really a little bit longer, but technically 100 hours.
Yeah.
And you can't use it in Team Yankee because it's all in desert colors. You can't use it in War on Terror because it's now like at least a decade out of date. And it does show even in the infantry and the vehicles, certainly. I mean, the Marines weren't still driving around in busted ass M60s, in Afghanistan, later on in War on Terror. So there's literally nowhere you can use it except, a war that in real life lasted 100 hours. I mean, I spent more time probably building that army than the coalition spent building the army in real life in Desert Storm. But, it's going to be one of those things that, you have a reason, either you're interested in it or you have a personal connection to it or you have relatives or who knows what, that you want to build that force. And, you may not get to play it often, but I tell you what, like Marty says, wherever you take it, you're going to be the belle of the ball, so to speak, because, oh, look, another Kabokage table of, paratroopers versus German infantry. Oh, what the hell is this? Paraguay versus Uruguay in, the Triple Alliance War, 18, what the hell is that again? You got people on their phones, like looking the battle up on Wikipedia. What the hell even is this?
Right.
And then they've learned something. So, yeah, those little nooks and crannies in history are sometimes, they're a lot of work, but they're fun to explore, certainly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it on both the kind of the novelty and the niche of the game, as well as like I said, it looks like it's got some really cool miniatures. So it'll be good to see that later this year.
Yeah.
So what I keep trying to say is, to answer your guys' question, how often can you play it? If it's a fun game, you can play it as often as you want. There's no good things about it.
Well, it's not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, it's, yes, you can play it as much as you want, but somebody help me what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, you're pretty locked into a limited set of scenarios and a limited time frame with the game itself, as well as, the figures are made specifically for winter ops.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you can play the same scenarios or the same environment. You can mix it up a little bit, but there is going to be some limits to, whereas if you have generic World War II Germans or Russians or Americans, it's just a bigger range is what I'm saying. So, it's a very specialized game, and I think it's perfect for conventions or game club weekends or stuff like that. You know what it's really good for, guys? It sounds like it's the perfect game for a war game weekend.
Yeah, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yes. So, I think that would be an excellent game for our gaming weekend. Just throwing it.
And and that would give us enough time to actually, get it together and be ready to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Strip the guys down and put camo on them and have them as wind talkers.
Yeah. Somehow, how do we do that? Are we still talking about the French and Indian War guys? We'd have to cut the muskets out and put M1 carbines in there.
Right.
Yeah, it could work.
Gonna say, that century that you got to throw in there might be a challenge, but sure.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple centuries. So, all right. Cool. Anything else for news? I'm looking real quick to see what else there's popping up on. I tell you what, Empress is still producing a whole bunch of Vietnam miniatures, doing an amazing job. A lot of ARVN paratroopers coming out from them. So, if you guys are really looking for some Vietnam stuff, right now is a good time to pick up some stuff from Empress. And then Gray for Now Games, the guys that make Test of Honor, have been showing off some renders for, I don't even know how to say it, Takeda Shingen for Wargame Illustrated's Giants and Miniatures range, which are specific miniatures of famous people. A beautiful sculpt. Just a beautiful sculpt. So if you're into your feudal Japan, you definitely want to get that when it comes out from those guys. And then there's some Baron's War. So if you're looking for the Baron's War, Thomas, Count of Perche. So, if you're into that medieval type stuff, that's something.
That's roughly Robin Hood's time period.
Okay.
That's the time period from which the legends of who knows if Robin Hood was ever a real person, but just for people who might not know in the audience, Baron's War is the reign of King John I and whether or not England was still going to remain a pure autocracy or whether there was going to be some kind of power sharing between the monarch and I wouldn't exactly call it democracy, but at least between, that's what they call it, the Barons' War, landowning barons.
Yeah.
And according to, depends on what version of the legend you're listening to, either Robin Hood or, his father may have been one of those landowning barons who got in trouble, and hence the story begins. But it's roughly that time period, late 1100s, early 1200s, I believe.
Nice. So if that's your thing, and then I wanted to point out the Perry brothers are at it again. So, Jim, I'm going to throw this one at you, and I think you'll be impressed by this one. They have posted pictures of a new game with miniatures that they've created or painted up for the Arcerios Gamble, a game based on the encounter during the War of the Triple Alliance.
Oh, there we go.
So isn't that in South America, right? This was the...
Yeah, I think we may have covered
you've mentioned this
briefly.
A few times.
Yeah, we've talked about that in the past a little bit.
Yeah. War of Triple Alliance. Oh God, you're gonna test me now. Between three countries. I think Paraguay started it. They wound up fighting between some other countries. I think three other countries. Paraguay more or less attacked and invaded, or at least started a war with three other countries simultaneously. And was actually doing pretty well, but wound up, of course, losing the war, like we see, with all kinds of countries, France and the Napoleonics, Germany in World War I and II. They probably bit off more than they can chew. They do really well for a while, and at the end, they suffer pretty shattering defeats. It's interesting because this is kind of what we talked about earlier in previous episodes. It's one of those wars that. I don't know why it doesn't get more. Well, I guess I do know why. It doesn't get more attention in the wargaming community. It's the Napoleonics and it's the American Civil War of South America. We don't see a lot of combat that takes place in South America. Well, who's the last person that that built an army that you use strictly in South America? We've got armies you use in Europe, armies you use in Asia. If you get into American Civil War, American Revolution, you get wars that take place in North America. Not many people build armies for combat that takes place in South America. And there are wars down there. Simon Bolivar is the Napoleon of South America, the George Washington of South America. He, liberated, I don't remember how many countries from the Spanish Empire.
Yeah.
He's one of the greatest, military leaders that's ever been. And yet, whenever you talk to people on the internet or whatever, you say, "Give me your top 10 military commanders." You get Caesar, you get Napoleon, you get Hannibal, you never see guys like Simon Bolivar. I don't know what it is. It's just South America doesn't get any spotlight on it. And there's a lot of people down there. And where you have a lot of people, you have a lot of fighting. And the Triple Alliance War was a big one. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was absurd the amount of losses that Paraguay wound up taking. Something like 50% of every male in the country. I'm actually not exaggerating that. I may be a little bit off just by not knowing the details, but it was, it was worse than, percentage-wise, it was worse than any country took in World War II. It was an absurd number of people.
Yeah.
Got killed in that war, especially on Paraguay, but then they did take on like half the continent, and then they lost. but yeah, it's a really nasty war. Probably the biggest war that's ever taken place on that continent. And yet, not only do you normally not see about it, do you not see it or read about it in a lot of history, but until this Perry release came along, you almost never saw it even mentioned, let alone supported with any wargaming product. So absolutely, I mean, anything that kind of shines a spotlight into an area that doesn't normally get a lot of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could be another good convention gaming weekend kind of game.
Well, anything the Perrys do. I mean, if you're looking for mainstream to the more obscure stuff, Perrys are the guys to go to, in my opinion. So, they have a little bit of everything. So, if you're really looking for something, they pretty much are going to have it. So,
and they make fantastic miniatures.
Yes.
I don't know. I guess maybe wargaming isn't a big thing in South America. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. It's bigger in some parts of the world than others. I have a feeling that if wargaming was a bigger deal in South America, this would be one of the wars that you would see come up all the time, because it's very big in the history down there. And it's great that the Perrys are looking into it.
Yeah. Jeff, did you wargame some South America stuff last week or last couple of weeks?
I mean, yeah, if you do Narcos, stuff like that, like, modern day Colombia, stuff like that. Yeah, in fact, we might be doing some tomorrow. Spoilers.
No, I'm talking the Falkland Islands, that's technically.
Yeah, this is also very true. This is very, very true. Actually, I stand corrected. We totally did South American wargaming. Literally, we did a whole Op Center series on that. Yeah, I think we do that to support. I think the Falkland Islands War is a lot more famous and what's the word? Regarded, looked back upon among our friends in the UK than it is in Argentina. I mean, as far as the Argentinians go, that war is not over. They have never ever relinquished their claim on the Falkland Islands. They're obviously not going to do anything about it right now, but they haven't forgotten. But for the British, on the other hand, yeah, I mean, anytime you mention the Falklands, you go over to a site like On Tabletop or Beasts of War, and the Falklands immediately starts getting hits. Because that's mostly a UK community. Not entirely, obviously, but mostly a UK community. And they are, you mentioned the Falklands and everyone's ears come up. They definitely, even people who aren't into historical conflict or modern conflicts, even the fantasy 40K Star Wars crowd or whatever, they know about the Falklands. They know about Harriers. They know about, the stuff that went on down there. And, the interest level goes up for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, so last but not least, Knuckle Duster Miniatures, one of my favorite little shops. Our buddy Forrest has put out an announcement of a Texas Rangers faction, which I'm all about. If you like your Western stuff, he does some amazing stuff. So he posted up. He says he's on vacation right now, and they're available through retailers, but not on his website. But they will be when he comes back from vacation. I have a personal special place in my heart for Texas Rangers because one of the things I thought would be the pinnacle of my career was to become a Texas Ranger. I always, in my law enforcement career, before life got in the way, I really, really wanted to be a Texas Ranger. I thought, if it wasn't a U.S. Marshal doing fugitive task force, I wanted to be a Texas Ranger. I thought those guys were the bomb, if you will, in law enforcement. You listen to the stories of the old days where you'd have a lawless town and the local marshal or sheriff couldn't clean it up. They sent in one. You heard me, one ranger, and that ranger would clean up the town. So, I just... Go ahead.
You was alone?
Yeah.
Then he would be the
Lone Ranger. But bump.
You're welcome.
Sure, you've been wearing a mask.
Gotta serve it up there.
All right. Let's transition into some heavy duty topics. The first one I want to talk about, it's a news item, but it's going to turn into a conversation. And we've kind of had this conversation in the past on several aspects. I received this morning an announcement from one of my Wargaming Facebook pages that there is a pre-order up for a game called Troubles, or The Troubles. It is a game based upon what my friends, brothers, sisters, my other family in Northern Ireland know as The Troubles. And there's now a war game based upon The Troubles. And holy crap, has the page blown up. Because you have people who are like, why in the hell would you ever do a game about the Troubles, the conflicts in Northern Ireland, that if you're old enough, you will remember from the 80s and 70s, when you had the British paratroopers and other British element over in Northern Ireland to quell, whatever you want to call it, freedom fighting, terrorism, depending on which side of the fence you stand on. They have a game about it. Then you have other people saying, I would play the game. Where do you draw the line as to what you can do a game about and what you can't do a game about? If you're saying I can't do a game about the Troubles, but I can do one about Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam or whatever the case may be, where's the line drawn? So I thought that was a very interesting point of view from some people. Now, again, this hits kind of close to home for me because I do have a lot of dear and close friends over in Northern Ireland, and, Jim knows them as well. And we've had conversations when we're over there about, was it you don't wear orange on certain days, and, whether you fly the Union Jack or don't fly it, and, you have 12th Night and all that stuff. Boy, did it! Jim is very familiar with touchy subjects. When you were doing your gaming series, was it Chechnya, or the Ukraine? I can't remember which region.
I literally have built I've built my gaming bones on touchy subjects.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you to finish completing or presenting the question or the problem, the discussion topic. But yeah, I've definitely tread into those kind of waters before. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I know other people are going to feel differently. Other people have been sure to let me know that they feel differently. Congratulations. It doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this stuff is blown out of proportion and legends in their own mind, so to speak. Why is it that just to take this example, why is it the Troubles in Ireland are a touchy subject? Oh no, please don't mention an Irish car bomb. Oh no, but it's okay to do La Violencia in Colombia.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, La Violencia in Colombia, order of magnitude more people have lost their lives in that. Why are some? How about this counter question? Why do some people expect us to treat certain conflict with kid gloves?
Yeah.
The hell with that. No, you're not special. You're not a special part of the world. You're not a special people. Yeah, you went through some tough times. So do we. More people probably are killed in gang warfare in Chicago in a given year than were lost in any war in any year of the Troubles. Not to mention L.A., not to mention New York, not to mention Medellin, not to mention Bogota, not to mention Syria, not to mention Aleppo, not to mention Tehran, not to mention.
Yeah.
I don't know why certain conflicts stir up this little bit of firestorm. Oh, you can't talk about that. That's our thing. And piss off.
Well, tell us how you really feel, Jim.
Yeah, it gets. It does.
Well, we see where the controversy now comes from.
Here I'm going to take the opposing. I'm going to take the opposite side. Think about who you're playing games against, right?
Okay.
If you've got friends that are actually from Afghanistan, you're not necessarily going to play that era. You're not if you've got friends that are. Why?
Well, okay. I totally agree with what Chris is saying. Yeah, I totally agree with what Chris is saying. If it's a specific thing, like I'm going to run a game this weekend, whatever, with one of my community members. This guy actually was this actually kind of happened relatively recently. Some of the people that we've been gaming with recently are not terribly comfortable with modern conflict because they are, like us, actual veterans,
right.
and they've been to these places, and so we do something else. We do, World War II, or we do American Revolution, or we do something else.
Right.
That's a specific person, or if you go to a certain venue. But to say that a game shouldn't be like either released or it shouldn't, or if you put it up on the internet, it's gonna catch all kinds of flack in the comment section or whatever on the Facebook page or whatever social platform we're talking about. This shouldn't be tackled in general. Like maybe I'm misquoting, but I'm remembering, Bill, what you were just saying. Some of the comments in this Troubles website was, why are you making a game about this?
Right.
Well, maybe I won't bring this game to your house or your club, but I get to make a game about what I want. It happened. We do historical wargaming, and this is the thing. It's not some kind of sacrosanct topic.
No, I agree. And everyone's allowed to post their opinion. We just historically have known that a lot of the people who listen to our podcast, or a lot of people that play the games, you go back to Beasts of War and on tabletop, that was from that area. And that's still fresh enough to where it is it's a wound that hasn't completely healed yet.
Well, right.
I don't know about all that.
Here's the thing. I agree that for some people, and Jim and I know somebody, who will only play like World War II. He won't play anything more modern, and we know who that is. And
there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, but the point that I feel that I'm trying to make is it's almost censorship when somebody's saying you can't make a game about that.
Everyone gets to have an opinion until it's an opinion you disagree with. Then how dare you make a game about this?
Right.
Come on.
So,
come on.
So would I ever play this game in Northern Ireland with my friends? Hell no. Not unless they are the ones who initiated it. Would I even discuss it with? I would have a conversation with them to get their feelings and their thoughts. But would I say, hey, we're going to play this? Hell no.
I wouldn't feel, almost never mind any kind of moral implication. I wouldn't feel like I knew enough from a tactical perspective. I wouldn't know enough from, the actual knowledge on the ground.
Right.
I would have to read 20 books before I was even close to knowing what these people know about that conflict already.
Right.
Yeah, but there are other conflicts like that.
Yeah. And
other people,
would I play the American Indian Wars, with friends of mine who are in the Cherokee Nation or the Sioux Nation? No, not unless they wanted to play Little Bighorn again. I
was going to say they won a lot of battles in those wars.
They won a lot of battles. They didn't win the war, but they won battles. What it comes down to is I understand that there are some things that people don't want to play, and I fully respect that. But don't censor things. Because when you censor things, we lose the objectivity, we lose the historical background. You can't whitewash life. And everybody seems these days to want to, and I'm not trying to do political, but we can't be whitewashing things. We need to learn about the conflicts. We need to learn about the politics behind the conflict because it does affect the conflict in the game itself. Maybe some games less than others. I thought Avalon Hill did a wonderful job on some of their games about the politics and the way behind it, supplies and, some of those bigger games that they used to do. And some of the more modern games do that as well. But a lot of them, miniature-based games these days is just skirmish. You're just doing this. This is your objective, But
a skirmish game is so low to the ground that the larger context of the battle hardly ever comes into it.
Yeah,
you almost have to get up to at least that operational, if not strategic level stuff. Like you were saying, Avalon Hill, GMT does a lot of stuff like that nowadays.
Yeah,
Twilight Struggle is probably the most famous one. Basically, the game takes 40 years. You play the entire Cold War, 1945 to the late 80s.
Cool.
And you see how it shakes out on your table. Like one side plays not just the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union and all their allies. It's one half of the world, you get this half of the world. Let's dance. And yeah, if you don't think politics or regional conflicts, come up in that, I mean, it's literally the whole point of the game.
Yeah.
I do agree with you both about you can't censor that. We just have to be
respectful.
Respectful. I mean, we wouldn't if we were down in Buenos Aires. You're not like, hey, let's play the Falklands War, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I almost
guarantee you, there's probably people down in Argentina that would play it because they want to win. Again, you have to.
We've had Argentinians comment on our op center.
Yeah.
I think also because I tried to present it where it was. It wasn't just the Argentine. A lot of it just comes down to language.
Yeah.
The Argentinians invaded the Falklands. Down come the British to liberate the Falklands. No, if you start talking like that, Argentinians are going to raise their hand or check out or just not watch your show or leave a nasty comment. It's if you handle it a little bit more objectively and leave out the flowery patriotic language, and make sure that if you present one side, just make sure that you also present the other side. And that's, by the way, going to make you tons of enemies.
Yeah.
Russia versus Ukraine. I've been having missiles thrown at me on that since 2015 because I walk down the middle of the road. And when you're walking down the middle of the road,
you're going to get hit by both sides.
Both sides are going to look at you and see you closer to their enemies than they are to them. And they're going to consider you I've gotten all kinds of hate from both sides on that one, Russians and especially Ukrainians. Ukrainians definitely take exception to some of the stuff. And you know what? It's their right to do so, and it's my right to put it up. I mean, right. Everyone has the right to an opinion. And you know what? That includes me. And that includes other warriors. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry we lost you as a subscriber, but deal with it.
Yeah. So, Jim, what you're saying is you are the UN peacekeeper of wargaming. You're right down the middle.
Yeah, I'm the guy in the blue helmet who always gets made fun of and always gets shot at by both sides. I mean, it's just if you're going to get into seriously into number one, historical wargaming, but just history in general, you have to have objectivity.
Yeah.
You have to take off your patriot hat and leave it at the door. You can't you can't talk about the Solomons as a U.S. Former Marine and talk about 1st Marine Division on Guadalcanal. Also, you know what? The Japanese were there too. The Japanese went through insane amounts of starvation, privation, suffering, disease, overpowering fire. You have to respect both. Talk about Iwo Jima. We did the Op Center special on Iwo Jima. It's tough to remain objective as an American. I certainly was not at Iwo Jima. I'm not that old. Thank you very much. But it's tough. Sometimes it's tough to be objective, but I think it's important to remain objective, respectful to both sides, and that's how you sort of avoid some of the stuff that we might see with this Troubles game. I mean, I haven't seen it. I haven't read it. I haven't played it. But if it's handled badly, if it's handled with a lot of jingoism, if it's handled with a lot of nationalism on just one side or the other, if the IRA are looked at as straight out terrorists or straight out freedom fighters, or and not some kind of nuance in there, if the British are looked at as peacekeepers and not occupiers, or vice versa. It can't be the black and white. It's going to have this sort of because the real situation is, of course, very murky, and you have to make sure that you include that murk either in any kind of writing, whether you're making a movie, writing a song. Well, a song is going to be mostly poetry. You're going to have a stand there, but if you're going to provide that as a game and not expect, you're going to get a lot of hate on that kind of a game. That's just to be expected. But yeah, if you're not going to get any kind of respect if you don't handle it with respectful objectivity. So yes, I understand that people want to. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but super fast. I understand you want to have that everybody wants to treat this stuff as respect. Just what that means is sometimes means different things to different people. Like if you're not on their side, they think you're being disrespectful. There's a lot of that out there. So I handle things when I try to do more recent conflicts, either in writing, videos, gaming design, or whatever, respectfully, and then I get hate mail saying I'm not being respectful. because I'm not handling things from their perspective. So that would be my only addition on that. Sorry.
Well, and I think that especially, historical wargaming, one of the things it does is it keeps the history alive. Hey, this is a thing. It happened. Right, wrong, or indifferent, good or bad. It is history. It has occurred. The other thing that it does is it encourages us to educate ourselves about that particular conflict, battle, campaign, whatever it is.
Right.
Because I learned more about this stuff when I am playing games, and I'm like looking at scenarios. And I'm like, oh, this is a battle that I wasn't aware of. This would be a pretty cool scenario. And then I look at it more and get into the details a little bit. Like, okay, could we actually game this out? Understandably, sometimes that can be a sensitive topic for folks, and if that's a sensitive topic for someone, that's not the game to play with them, maybe. But it doesn't mean the game shouldn't exist.
Yeah, your particular audience, you have to. This is where I totally agree with Chris. Your particular example, your particular audience, you have to be really careful with that. But whether or not the game should be published or not is a different topic. And as far as the reasons people give why they believe certain topics shouldn't be covered, when you actually engage with them in a discussion, either live or online, and you start to pin them down or start to, I don't want to say pin them down or box them in, but when you start to clarify their reasons why they feel X topic should not be covered, it's blatant personal bias. It's blatant self-importance. This is something I lived through. Well, first of all, you didn't live through it. Okay. It's 12 people were murdered in Fort Lauderdale yesterday. I didn't live through any of that. That doesn't mean that, it's a horrible thing. You shouldn't talk about Fort Lauderdale or whatever town you live in or whatever crime or unrest is going on in your town. Now, there are exceptions. There are people who have served in a given conflict. They had a rifle on their shoulder. This happened, and they had to carry somebody home that walked in. They didn't walk out. Okay, that's different. But that's like 1% of 1% of these cases. The people that we keep talking about that we know, and again, it's more than one, who say, hey, guys, I'm fans of your website. I'm a subscriber. I don't really do modern gaming because I don't feel as comfortable for myself because I was here, I was there. I know somebody who was there who didn't come back. They're not the ones. I've never had an issue from any of these people who, where they said, you really shouldn't be covering this or this game shouldn't be published or anything like that. They're the last people to say that. The people that say that are typically, from my experience, ones who weren't involved in the conflict. They happen to live maybe in the country where some of the conflict might have taken place 20 years before they were born, and somehow they're still bearing some kind of psychic wound. They're like, come on, man. It gets a little thin when you actually start to, work on them. Well, why aren't we playing in Afghanistan? Well, my brother's kid, nephew, or whatever, was landing in Manhattan on September 11th, 2001. So, therefore, you should not make a game about Afghanistan. I mean, when you actually start to figure it out and engage with these people and actually ask them why they feel a certain game shouldn't be covered, you come up with a lot of this. Again, if someone actually lives there, like somebody, hi, I'm a Syrian refugee. I just made it out of Aleppo with, by the skin of my teeth. I lost 2 family members trying to get my family out of Aleppo. The Syrian war is a little tough for me to deal with. Okay, obviously, totally different. Yeah. I served in Afghanistan. I had a brother not come back. I was in Iraq. I was in, absolutely. The number of people, like I live and work in South Florida. Tomorrow we're doing a game set in Colombia. The number of people I've worked with where that's how they got to be Americans. They said, you know what, or their parents said, or their grandparents said, you know what, La Violencia is just too much. We can't live here anymore. They bailed out of Colombia. They emigrated to the United States. They became citizens, and now they live and work here in South Florida. I mean, I've known multiple people at multiple jobs. Would I bring up a Narcos game to them to play with? Well, they don't play war games, but no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even ask them about the Narcos TV show, because, okay, they literally had to flee their country. Nobody, I don't know. Those are the people that tend not to complain about this stuff. That's from my perspective, or in my experience.
One of the differences, though, Jim, with what you're saying about Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff like that, and with the Troubles, is the Troubles wasn't in a distant country; it was amongst themselves, right? And
Iraq and Afghanistan was totally in somebody's country. Well, why is Ireland more important than Iraq or Afghanistan?
Well, if my nephew's kid went off to Afghanistan and didn't come back, that's different than, hey, my whole family was in this neighborhood that was going through bombings. Okay, that I agree with you. It should not be black, but it should still be treated with a bit of respect for those people. And I know you're saying that as well. But it's not a distant thing. It's when we're talking about the Solomons, the Solomons were done halfway across the country. Even though we lost a lot of people, the Japanese lost a lot of people there, it was still being played elsewhere. If we were playing the game about, a flight game, and you're like, okay, hey, the objective is for you to fly these planes into these buildings. Yeah, well, we might not want to be doing that one, right?
Yeah.
So
I would only offer that. Yeah, the Solomons. Yeah, totally point taken. I was talking about, we were covering a certain topic, and that was, near and dear to me on some kind of emotional level. You still have to remain objective. But as far as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Ireland, yeah, we're really comparing apples and oranges there. I mean, the amount of violence that takes place in Medellin or Bogota compared to whatever happened in Belfast, order of magnitude, if not two. I mean, not even close. I'm so sorry. There's more violence in South Central LA on a given friggin' Tuesday than there ever was in Northern Ireland. I'm sorry. Numbers don't lie. I know I'm pissing a lot of people off right now, but I know some of the stuff we can't cover. We can't. Oh, it happened amongst us. It happened among people in Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan civilians are less. I know you didn't. I know you didn't mean this, but we fall into we as a group, as a society, almost start to fall into a trap where it happened amongst people in Syria. I mean, I'm sure people in Aleppo feel pretty strongly about how this conflict took place, but we're okay to game in Syria or Afghanistan or Iraq. And I know that's for a lot of people, no, you're not okay to game there. Stop agreeing with me, Ariskini, dumbass.
That's not what I meant, where it was around,
totally.
Or it wasn't around people. I'm saying, okay, if we're talking about, baseball in a town that has two different teams, most of us don't care about baseball and, one team over another. But if you're in Chicago, you like one team over the other. And that is like your whole family is like that. That's or it's a house.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Right.
What
you're on the other side of the country, well, who cares? Because it doesn't really affect you. When I'm talking about with the Troubles, you got, this was going on. And it wasn't like the crime that's going on in Chicago and the crime that's going on in Fort Lauderdale. That was crime. That's not being pushed upon those people by an outside government, right? That it's not the same thing as wargaming. Crime and
says it's an outside government. I mean, we're really about to start the Troubles here. But I mean, we're almost taking sides right there.
Okay. So one thing I know that we tried to be objective on, and I cannot be objective on, is when we played 13 hours.
Right.
I don't think there's a other side that we can look at and try to understand. There is no other side to that. It was wrong, completely. Oh, somebody's got a helicopter in the background.
Yeah, that's me. To make the counterpoint to that, there's some Libyans that probably would tell you to go screw yourself. What are you doing in my country at all? Who the hell are you? You're trying to affect regime change.
Yeah. Why there? I'm saying, should we have waited to get our ambassador out or not?
Well, I mean, so the whole point of this was, do you censor or do you not censor? Right?
Jones.
So, regardless of where you stand.
That answer is simple. Yeah. However, with a huge asterisk underneath it, and this is, again, to keep underlining Chris's point, you do have to be cognizant and
be respectful
and aware of your particular audience.
Right.
Asterisk, exception to the exception is, hey, particular audience, you don't speak for all of us.
Yeah.
So calm down.
So,
and for me, I don't think 13 hours was us against the Libyans. I think the wrong party was.
Well, we're not getting into the politics. All right. So the whole point of this conversation is, is there a line that you don't cross in wargaming, or, obviously it's going to be very sensitive in one region of the world versus other regions. To Chris's point, like the Solomon Islands, the conflicts in the Solomon Islands, to us here in the United States, now it's 50, 60, 70 years in the past. It doesn't, really sting. However, there were people living in the Solomon Islands. So, it may be sensitive to them having to live through the Japanese occupation and things like that. So, the other point is like the Falkland Islands. The Argentinians are probably a little bit more sensitive to that than the British are, or other parts of the world. It also depends on how you present the game. And to Jim's point, if you come in as the great liberator, on one side and your game is skewed that way, you're going to catch a lot of crap about it. If you present it from a neutral point of saying, this is this viewpoint, this is this viewpoint, this is the historical context, without putting in all the, the rah-rah flag waving of one country or whatever over the other, then part of being a historian is diving into the difficult topics to find out why and how to prevent it and what could have been different, right? That's truly what historians do.
And you can't understand history without seeing both sides.
Right.
I feel this is why World War II. Was such a popular topic in wargaming. As horrible as World War II was, it's one of the worst events in all of human history. It's kind of tough to you don't really have to be that objective in World War II.
No.
It's tough to find people who will defend the Third Reich.
Right.
So it's a little bit more safe. However, once you get into modern topics, which is what SITREP mostly does, we accepted this mandate when we picked up, when we started the project. And at least for me, I always realized, we're gonna catch flack now and then, because some people are going to be, and it's fun to engage with those people. As long as they can be at least a little bit respectful. We had some, we did when the Ukraine was really getting ready to pop off again earlier this year. I ran a Ukraine game, and I had a guy from the Ukraine really come at me hard in the YouTube comments. And at first I was really pissed off because the guy was not very polite at all. But then I'm like, you know what? This is an ongoing war, and he lives in that country. And if he tries to take the middle road when his country is actively at war with this other country, he's literally being unpatriotic. And part of my issue and problem with that whole war is how unpatriotic the Ukraine is being. The reason they're in so much trouble is they're being very lackadaisical and very lazy, corrupt. Oh my God, dude. Al Capone would blush at how corrupt that parts of that government are. The new president's doing his best, but he's getting blocked in a lot of places. So I can't go after this guy. I can't counter this guy.
Right? Not ours.
Yeah, their new president is actually trying to clean up a lot of the. I actually had the numbers, but I lost them in my notes. But the long story short is, take your first shot. Part of my beef about what's going on in the Ukraine is how, not into it. Ukraine is basically, being they're going to, if we follow too far down that road, they're going to be our next South Vietnam. I say that with full friggin' awareness. As far as trying to defend a corrupt, weak, badly organized regime that's hated by some of the people in that country against, members of its own country that are revolting against it. And they have outside help. if we get sucked too deep into that. But then again, when one of those people stands up for their country and gets very patriotic in the comments, even if he's yelling at me, you know what? He's one of the exceptions. He's one of the people, like I mentioned before, he's one of the people that get to be upset. I respect his right to be upset. But when it comes to most people who squawk and cry and whinge and whine and cry and bitch and moan about you can't do this conflict because why? Tell me why. Seriously. Who did you lose? Where do you live? What branch did you serve in? Oh, I thought so. Sit down. Is where, again, 90% of that winds up. However, footnote, asterisk, exclamation point, there are those 10% people who, when they do have an issue, I totally respect that. And it also seems to be, at least in my experience, the people who legit have a reason to have that issue are very, very respectful. You almost never hear from them at all. They might not watch that particular video. They might not buy that certain game. But they don't come at you with a whole bunch of social justice, and they just don't. At least not to me. Has been my experience.
Now, one of the things with with most of these games, or most of these conflicts, I should say, is the arbitrary lines that you see drawn on the globe. I mean, if you look at the eastern part of Ukraine, those people overwhelmingly believe that they're better represented by Russia than they are by the Ukrainian government.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to Catherine the Great.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just drawing the line doesn't mean that, hey, everybody on this side you're this, or everybody on that side you're that.
This is a huge topic that we should probably save for another episode. Maybe our next topic, when drawing the map creates the next war. Holy hell, the Treaty of Versailles. 90% of what's happened in Africa, probably the most war-torn continent in the world since 1945, you can trace right back to a salon in France somewhere, or Britain, or Germany, or Portugal, where a bunch of old white men, not to get too political, were sitting there drawing lines on a map. And it's like, no, you're literally, okay, when you're in one of those like treaty negotiations, like you versus Portugal versus Germany versus France versus Spain versus Britain, you're arguing with each other about things that you care about. You're not paying attention to who lives in these areas. And okay, you've got, ethnic group A, ethnic group B, tribe C, ethnic group D, and they live in these different areas of the country. And then you draw the lines of your colonies, your European colonies, irrespective of where these people live. You're dividing up these countries and you're dividing up these ethnic groups. Along comes World War II. World War II destroys the idea of empire, especially European empire. It implodes, and everyone pretty much just sets up these new independent countries on these old colonial lines. And then we wonder why all these countries are in constant states of civil war. Because they were, Yugoslavia, Iraq, anybody who's ever had to serve in Iraq has suffered because of this problem. Iraq's a fake country. It was created in friggin' in France somewhere. I can't remember exactly. When they were, the Ottoman Empire fell and they whacked it up between the different, European victorious powers. That's why we have different ethnic groups. If those borders were allowed to form on their own in a more organic and natural way, along mountains, river lines, where this group of people lives, that group of people lives, you wouldn't have Kurds, Shiites, and Sunnis all living in the same country and they all hate each other. They would live in their own countries, and once in a while you might have a border war between the two, but you wouldn't have this constant state of perpetual or at least borderline civil war in all these countries. And it's because people were very careless when they drew these borders.
No, I disagree with you, because you're going to get these tribes. Some of these tribes, they're just warring tribes. They don't like the other people, and
but they would be in two different countries.
Okay, but they would still be warring.
Yeah, and it would be wars between countries, which happen a lot less frequently than civil wars, especially in the modern era.
Yeah, well, okay, so being in Iraq and being civil affairs, we were like, hey, we've got a pump, we've got a water well right here, so that should, produce enough water for all the people in an area up to, let's say, 5 miles away. Well, that right there is on a canal or a river, and it cannot serve the people on the other side just because they're a different tribe. And because they're a different tribe, they're taking their life in their hands if they go over to that well. So you get down to that level, or, hey, the property on that side is, better for growing. It's got, more of the silt from the river, and it grows better over there. We want that. And, or, my great grandfather had that property over there, so that's historically mine. I'm going to take that back. You're even at that level, you're always going to have issues. People are always going to want what the other person has.
I agree with that, and again, we're talking about water and irrigation. Water and irrigation has long been an issue between, say, Israel and Syria. They've had 3 wars over the last 50 years. They haven't had 20 because Israel and Syria are 2 different countries.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying you would eliminate warfare, but you would. I think you would cook down the number, and not only the number, but international wars tend to last, a certain amount of time. Civil wars drag on for generations, and I feel that if a country, when was the last time Iraq was its own? Well, number one, I'm just about to contradict myself, but just to keep going with the Iraq example, when was the last time Iraq was its own country? Like Nebuchadnezzar? Seriously. After that, it was the Persians. After that, it was the Babylonians. After that, it was briefly the Romans, Parthians, the Ottoman Empire. Iraq is one of those countries that's always been conquered by somebody. And all these people have been forced to kind of, live together within a certain amount of borders that I think normally they would not, or I think that if things have been left to their own devices, they may not wind up living in such close proximity that you're discussing. I'm not saying that there's an easy fix nowadays. Oh, let them just sort it out. I'm not saying that at all. Yeah. But things like Eastern Ukraine. Yeah, Catherine the Great wanted some of that land, so she picked up 20 million Russian families and she moved them there. And said, here, you live here now. Nobody wanted them there. The people who got moved there didn't want to live there, but that was her way of changing the demographic in certain parts of her empire. Stalin did the same thing during the 5-year plans of the late 20s and early 30s. It's artificial, it's external, and when external and artificial forces try to influence the way countries develop, you run into these problems. Then Ukraine just breaks off and becomes its own country, and now you've got all these, like you're mentioning, all these ethnic Russians living in the eastern part of Ukraine. And then, I can't remember his name, 2014, the newly elected president, who wasn't very legitimately elected, I'm talking about the president of Ukraine now, pops up and says, oh, thank you, here's my acceptance speech. Oh, by the way, we're asking for membership in the EU, which is basically, can we please join NATO? And you're talking about people who, you talk about, you can't game this because people have histories and people have memories. Yeah. You just invited the German army into the eastern Ukraine. They remember what German tanks look like with black crosses. Somehow that never gets mentioned by, people who like to, complain about this stuff. And then they wonder why, a big slice of the Ukraine says, no, thank you very much.
Yeah, we have this war. Stop back. Oh, sorry.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, that went way longer than I thought it was.
Thanks for rolling that hand grenade down the hallway.
Wow, I don't think we're going to have time for our other topic. We'll have to save that for the next show. But, yeah.
Did I break the podcast again? I apologize.
We kind of... I don't think we broke it.
We didn't even get to talk about the Duran line between Afghanistan and Pakistan yet.
Oh, Lord.
Or the federally administrated tribal area.
Hold on. Hold everything. Don't make me bring out Gunny and tell you to shut the fuck up.
You don't have a hair on your ass.
All right.
Bring it, big boy.
So, guys, we're apologize that we went really, really dark and serious on this one. That wasn't the intent. It was just, can we say that there's something that we can't create a game about, or and I think we're all of the consensus that we don't censor. But if you are going to create a game based on a touchy subject, war, combat, genre, whatever, to do it respectfully and trying to be as neutral as possible. And we understand that there will always be people who will not be happy about it. But there are other people who want to learn about it and explore the topic. So,
yeah, and think about where you're going to be selling that game, because that one specifically won't be in Northern Ireland.
Well, it's web-based, so it's available to anybody in the world. Theoretically,
if you're gonna produce the game, be wary. You're gonna catch some kind of feedback,
right.
And then if you're going to buy, purchase, download, and then play the game and take it around, be careful about your specific audience or
right.
the people in particular that you're going to be gaming with.
Exactly. So
don't expect to find it at the game shop in Northern Ireland.
All right, we're done. We're done with the topic, okay? Because we could spend the next 3 hours talking about this. So I want to close out the show on a more hobby/happy, lighthearted. Have you guys seen the new range from Army Painter? Chris, I know you invested in the mega set like I did. They have a new set coming out. It's airbrush paints.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting my hands on those. But I want to hear people's thoughts on those, because I hate to go down that road because there's just as many strong proponents or opponents on paint lines, whether you're a Vallejo person, Army Painter person, Scale 75, P3s, obviously Citadels. So, some people like one over the other and swear by them. I happen to own all of them. I have my pluses and minuses on those. So it's just another tool in the toolkit, but I would like a nice expansive range of airbrush paints. Vallejo makes a nice range of airbrush paints, but they tend to be rather costly. But you do, I'm a true believer in this. You get what you pay for. So I'd be interested to see those when they come out here in the next couple months.
And it looks like their airbrush line is going to sync up really well with their regular paint.
Yes, and that's exciting.
Yeah. So it's not like you got to figure out, is airbrush blue the same as brush blue,
right?
Or which one equals the other kind of thing if you're mixing and matching them on a model.
Exactly.
And you're trying to, be able to, go through the hues and tones with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's one thing Army Painter does well. Like there's cans of spray paint to match their droplet bottles.
Yes.
One of the things when I was working on my ships, mixing my paints, I've got some paints that I can have them in the shaker for 8 minutes and you still can't hear the ball rolling around in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not that much of a fan of the Army Painter because of some of those inconsistencies.
Well, Chris, honestly, that's because you don't use your paints. And so they sit and settle and all the pigment goes to the bottom. So it takes a long time. If you use your paints more often, you wouldn't have that problem.
Okay, well, understandably, but since most of our stuff is historical, verdigris green doesn't get used quite a bit.
Well, then why'd you buy it?
Because it came in the mega set, like you said.
Because it was part of the giant set he bought.
I mean, if you so this is a tip for all you people out there. If you're going to buy a lot of paint and there are colors you're not going to use that often, you really need to set yourself for a practice of shaking your bottles once a month at minimum. And I think, Chris, you've given me an excellent idea.
Uh-oh.
I know, right? I think we need a review video on paint shakers. So I think I have one of the paint shakers for hobbying. I'm going to get one of those oscillating ones, and then we'll compare. I will get some paints that unopened that I'll let sit for like a month, and we will test them out. I'll get the same color, so we can't say, well, it's black is more pigment than yellow or whatever. And I will test it. I'll put a ball bearing in each one because the stainless steel ball bearings. I'll put one in each one. I will do handshake. We'll do the Robertson's paint shaker, which is I have on my table right now, and I'll get an oscillating one, and we'll see which one works the best. And maybe I will do a paint comparison. So we'll do like a bottle of Army Painter. We'll do a bottle of Vallejo. And I don't know, maybe we'll do I don't want to do Citadel paints because they're in pots, not dropper bottles. So,
right.
So, and we'll see how it works. But really, truly, all kidding aside, you've got to shake your bottles. Shake your bottles.
In all honesty, I think that'd be a great idea because I think just in general on our channel, I think we need more hobby related content. We've done a lot of virtual stuff, a lot of tabletop gaming, even if it's only virtual. Hobby related stuff is sometimes a little more difficult to produce because you have to actually have a web camera and editing and set everything up.
Yeah.
But we need to re-diversify, I think, a little bit in our content.
I agree. Jim and I were talking about this the other day about, do we refocus and all that? And that was going to be our extensive conversation for today, actually, not the should we game this or not. Our actual conversation is refocusing.
Whenever that topic comes up, Borowski's going to have plenty to say.
All right.
I bear the scars. I've come by it honest. I've taken a lot of beating for that, and right. I shoot back.
So, guys, we on our next show, we will dedicate our time to our how do we refocus? Where do we re-energize ourselves? Because I'll be honest with you, work has been so overwhelming for me these last couple months that it takes everything I have to put some content together. And I know Jim has been busting his ass putting a lot of content together. So we need to refocus, re-energize, recenter. So we're going to talk about that in our next episode. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We need you guys to help us out a little bit. I need you guys to spread some love. Get some people. We've had a little bump in the road in subscribers on our YouTube channel this last few weeks. Now, I equate it. I had a panic moment. Jim had pointed out we lost so many subscribers. But I kind of looking back, July is kind of a tough month. We kind of go dip and then we come back because it's warmer months. People are doing other things, at least here on the northern hemisphere.
I think a lot of COVID restrictions are lifting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe gaming clubs are starting to open again. I don't know how much of that's happening, but we haven't lost any net, but we've sort of hit a little bit of a slow patch as far as growth goes.
Yeah.
We need to figure something out.
And the reason why this is so important, so everybody knows, the more people we have as subscribers, members, whatever you would like to say, it helps with getting us out in front. There's all these computer algorithms, and Chris and Jim probably could talk to them until the cows come home. But the more people that subscribe, and even if they're only watching it for 2 to 3 minutes, or listening some for even, if it's not the full, it's activity, and then YouTube and Facebook promote it more on their own. So it helps the channel grow. And honestly, with growth, we're going to get more content. We're going to get more variety because we're going to get more input. And we might get that next news guy, or we could get, another game creator, or so we can have some really good in-depth conversations about gaming, and, so it leads to more. So we really need your guys' help on that. So if you could promote the page, share it, like it, subscribe, hit the bell, all the stuff you hear on all the different channels. It would really help us as we start to grow. The first 6 months of this year we had a meteoric rise. We smashed through our goals. The last few weeks we've kind of plateaued. Now I would like to see us start growing again because we want to be able to offer more, and the more people we have that support us, through subscribing and everything, helps us as well. I'm still working on our own individual website. That'll be sitreppodcast.com or whatever I can get it. And there might be a membership where there might be some things. for like $10 a year, you get, early access to a lot of stuff. Some hobby videos, like Marty can finally do his, what did you do? Your vines, your vineyards. Yeah. And at a certain level, like a $20 a year pledge, you get a free t-shirt on top of it. So, stuff we're working on, just to help alleviate some of the costs. Cause it does help, we do pay, a monthly service fee for this and service fee for that. And it's totally self-supported at this time. But, as we grow, more things happen and the costs start increasing. So anyways, I don't want to do Patreon again. I feel like a one-time annual subscription is cool, and then we're gone. I don't, Patreon model, I know I just feel funny about it, but that's my personal opinion. Maybe you guys have different opinions. But anyways, this whole podcast is...
Found?
What's that? So for you guys out there, this show is all for you. Even if we don't talk a lot about a direct hobby, we're hoping we're giving you food for thought on your own hobbying, whether it's, miniatures, board game based, hex encounter, virtual, whatever the case may be. And it inspires you to go out and game and hobby, and create scenery and stuff like that. So yes, Marty and I we'll be working on our Savage Frontiers table here shortly.
Yes.
And then, we still have to do the War of Scale. So it looks like I'm going to have to print up some different armor, because we're just going to use armor. It'll be, M1s versus T whatever. What's the best tank to go against M1s right now, Jim, that's historically accurate? It's not T-72s, right?
Historically accurate? Yeah, sadly it would be T-72s.
Okay.
If you want to be like historically plausible, it could be the T-90s that the Russians are coming out with. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There are certain Chinese tanks.
Yeah.
Again, we're not talking about historical events, but historical plausibility. God forbid something could kick off in the Pacific somewhere. Taiwan could be a good example.
Yeah.
And some of the new Chinese tanks are actually pretty scary. They're often T-80 or T-90 knockoffs or inspired by or whatever derivatives. There's some scary ones out there as well.
All right. So we'll keep that in mind as I look for STL files so I can print up some, because I'll have to print up something in 6 mil, which I have 3 mil. I think I have T-72s or whatever in 3 mil. From Pico Armor.
If you're more concerned with the actual just the tank type and not the nationality, a real nightmare scenario is a fifth. Well, who knows what the number would be, but a future Arab-Israeli war between Israel and Egypt. This could have happened in the wake of the Arab Spring 2011. Thank God it did not. But if things go south again between Egypt and Israel, Egypt is lavishly equipped with the latest M1A2s. They have almost as many as we do by this point, amazingly to say. And you would see M1A2s versus Merkaba 4s in the Sinai Desert.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Again, geopolitically, I hope it's not likely. I mean, God forbid, again, this war ever happens. But if you wanted to get, again, theoretical about wars that could happen in the future, and you just wanted to put, again, they wouldn't be American M1s, they'd be Egyptian M1s. And you wanted to put M1 or M1A2s or whatever, you want to put Abrams up against the best possible tank that they could conceivably really come muzzle to muzzle with. It sounds crazy, but the Merkava 4 could happen.
Yep. So we'll have to look at that. Maybe we'll get Jim to help be our historical consultant, and we'll put it together. Basically, I'm going to just use what I have. I'm not going to bust my ass to go out and get what I have, because we're looking at reality of scale more than historically accurate tanks, if that makes sense. What if you're doing an armor battle with some mechanized infantry? What scale gives you the real feel, if you will. So that's what we're going to be looking at, guys. So for the entire SitRep podcast team, this is Bill, SitRep 6, wishing you guys wonderful time gaming and hobbying. Until we see you next time, take care, be safe, and have fun.
You have been listening to the Sitrep podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Discord. Remember to join us every other weekend for a new episode of the podcast, and don't forget our other programming on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks for listening.